For 12 months, we've seen 70,000 New Zealand citizens leaving to live in another country, about 60% of them going to Australia. That's the highest we've ever seen it. A lot of the high-income world, at the very moment they need new people and new workers, there's this strong anti-immigrant sentiment out there. So New Zealand looks quite positive.
So the growth of population in New Zealand is slowing down.
It is.
Is this a trend or is this a phase?
Earlier this year, I thought we'd bottomed out in terms of the decline in inward migration and net migration. I was wrong.
Well, he's the six-figure man because he did over 100,000 downloads when we last talked. So Professor Paul Spoonley, good to have you sitting across from me from the third time now.
Yes, good to be here, Luke.
You're a very popular guest.
Thank you.
Yeah. Now, a year ago, we sat down and we talked, and
Yes.
a lot has changed in the last 12 months. So let's start there and see where we end up.
All right. So we were talking about a spike in migration, and it was the highest spike we've ever seen. So a big inward migration, 253,000 people, and a net gain of 130,000. Now, where we are in late 2025, we're down at a little over 10,000 net gain. So we've really emptied the coffers really on terms of migration. And what it's done is it's slowed our population growth, which is not a bad thing, but it means that a lot of our growth is now confined to our big cities. So the regions, we get a lot of talk about the regions doing well economically because they're involved with the primary sector. But in fact, in terms of population, it's quite a different story.
So people are moving to the regions or they're not?
No, they're not.
Wow. Okay.
No, they're not. So during COVID, we saw a net loss out of Auckland per year of about 12,000. It's down at 3,000 and dropping. So that story of people getting out of Auckland and moving to the regions actually isn't a story any longer. It's changed completely. So from 12 to 3.
Because there's definitely a narrative out there that people are moving south and moving from Auckland to Christchurch and finding a different life in the South Island, for instance.
Yes, and that's true. So what we've got is 3 growth points, essentially the top half of the North Island, Auckland, Hamilton, Tauranga, and then we've got Queenstown Lakes, which is a bit unusual, but the other major growth point is Christchurch, Selwyn, Waimakariri, and they're certainly growing. But again, what's interesting is that we get a lot of attention to percentage growth. So Selwyn's seen as the fastest growing area in New Zealand at the moment. Hamilton's seen as the fastest growing city. But in fact, if you look at Auckland and break it down by local boards, Papakura's easily the fastest growing bit of New Zealand.
Interesting.
Yeah. So Auckland overall is still growing, but bits of it are growing faster, bits of it are not growing so fast any longer. So when you disaggregate it, you get some really interesting stories.
So the growth of population in New Zealand is slowing down.
It is.
Is this a trend or is this a little blip or phase?
Well, earlier this year, I thought we'd bottomed out in terms of the decline in inward migration and net migration. I was wrong. So what we've seen is the continued decline in the numbers arriving. We've seen more people leaving, and there are 2 stories there. And then the net gain from migration has dropped significantly. And so we, as a country, but parts of New Zealand, get most of our population growth from net migration. So when net migration drops, population growth evaporates. And so we've got 16 regions. 7 of those regions have actually seen population decline. So it's a reversal from what you and I talked about a year ago.
Wow. And do we have data to tell us why, or is it more anecdotal?
No, we have very good data. So Stats New Zealand, so there are 3 things that contribute to growth. One of them is natural increase, births over deaths.
Yeah.
One of them is internal migration. So we're seeing a lot of internal migration going to Selwyn, and that's contributing to growth. And then we've got international migration. And when you look across our cities and our regions, a year ago, high levels of inward migration and net migration gain were driving population growth. So that's gone, and so has population growth for many regions has gone. Auckland is still growing, and there are two contributors to Auckland. One is, of course, the natural increase, number of births, and the other is we're still getting international migration coming to Auckland. So Auckland is the major destination for migrants, and that's continuing to see Auckland grow.
So for it to grow, the population, when I say it, we need basically people coming in internationally.
Yes.
They then increase the number of people here. Some of them will, and everyone here will move internally. That doesn't increase the figure as such. Yep. But then we're not having more babies than we are deaths at the moment. Is that right?
We are having more babies than deaths.
Oh, okay.
As a country, but when you look at parts of New Zealand, Dunedin, more deaths than births. So it depends what region you're talking about.
Gotcha.
So we've got some regions that are experiencing stagnation, no population growth, and we've also got some regions, 7 of them, that are experiencing population decline.
Yeah.
So until we get migrants back, they're seeing a decline in population. There's one thing that's a big but in all of this, and that is people leaving.
People leaving New Zealand.
People leaving New Zealand.
Because it just speeds up the decline as such.
Yeah, it does. It does. And so we're tracking somewhere around 45 to 50,000 net loss. But in fact, for 12 months, we've seen 70,000 New Zealand citizens leaving to live in another country, about 60% of them going to Australia. And that's high. That's the highest we've ever seen it. Sheesh. So that, I think, is a major concern for me. I think we're losing some of our young, some of our skilled, some of our new graduates, and they're going to another country.
I'll come back to these two questions I have, but so then why is that a concern for you that they're leaving? Just so, because I'll have my opinion, I'm sure others do, but for someone who's experienced yourself and you've spent your whole life in this, why is that concerning for us that those people are leaving New Zealand?
Well, we tend to see the departures go up when economic conditions across the Tasman are in Australia's favour. So the last time we saw a spike in people leaving was at the end of the global financial crisis in 2011, 2012. So fast forward to 2025, obviously we've got very significant comparisons being made around, for example, what you can earn in Australia. The police, the Australian police forces have been over here recruiting, as have others. And, you know, a new constable would get somewhere 75 to 80,000 across the other side of the Tasman, somewhere, depending upon which state, between 100 and 120. Again, depending upon which state, you would get a relocation fee, which would quite a substantial amount. You might get a housing support up to 30,000, and your employer's paying 12% superannuation. So we're having to compete to retain new graduates out of the police college, the medical schools. Just you can keep going the list, carrying on with Australia, and Australia has that depth, and your returns for your work are that much greater in Australia.
Do you think that, well, maybe I'll put words in your mouth here so you can unpack this question better, but the media don't help by creating so much content and so many stories about people moving to Australia, and then we learn and kind of go, oh, well, maybe I could do that too, and that speeds the whole thing up? Yeah.
So there's always push and pull factors, and so we've got quite a soft labour market here. We've got a reduction in the number of employees in the government sector. So there's some push factors here. So people are looking for jobs. We've got students who are graduating with significant student debt. So why not go to another country? And then you've got Australia and what it offers. And I think perception's really important.
Yeah.
Because even if you, Luke, could earn more on the other side of the Tasman, there are always other non-monetary things that will keep you in New Zealand. Family, for example.
The beach.
Lifestyle. Yeah, they do have quite good beaches, actually. But you know, but there are other things that keep you here.
Yeah.
And I don't think we're working hard enough to retain some of our younger graduates, younger 20-somethings who tend to be the ones who move. There's two additional factors which I think are concerning about this current spike. One is that we're seeing 30-something people leaving. And so that suggests that they've been in our labour market for a while and then are moving offshore. That's concerning. The other is that some of the material that's coming out of Australia suggests that of the New Zealand citizens who are going to Australia, up to half of them weren't born in New Zealand, and that's new. We've got a mythology that people come, get citizenship, and then go to Australia. Actually, the numbers were quite modest up until now.
Now the material.
And now it looks as though immigrants who've moved to New Zealand, who've settled here, got citizenship, some of them in quite significant numbers are moving to Australia. That is concerning.
Is that partly because they may know, okay, if we go to New Zealand, that's our entry into Australia, or are the entry conditions relatively the same?
Relatively the same.
Okay.
And when we ask migrants why they come to New Zealand, it's very seldom in terms of work opportunities or what they can earn here. We don't compete on that. So they come here for lifestyle, for the educational possibilities, for the safety of the country. And what's interesting, depending upon how the question's asked, they do feel that New Zealand is more accepting of immigrants than Australia.
Okay.
So that's quite interesting. But I think what's happening at the moment is the comparison's pretty stark. And as you say, we're getting a lot of media attention focused on it.
It's almost a blessing and a curse that we have Australia right there, right? Because I have this battle all the time where people compare Australia to New Zealand. I kind of think it's a bit like me moving from Harwood to Auckland, being like, wow, there's more people here. Wow, there's more opportunity. Oh, I could do more business deals. Wow, I can't believe it. I can earn more here. Of course.
Yeah.
But because it's such a bigger population and economy, but people kind of subconsciously maybe see Australia as the same thing as New Zealand, go, well, I can earn more over here. I can have a better life. I'm not saying that, that's not fair to do as such, but I think it's almost like oversimplified. It's like, well, of course, look how much longer they've been doing superannuation for. There's more people, there's more infrastructure, there's more tax take. But then I watch content about Australia from Australians, and they're talking about, issues with the economy. They're talking about house prices. Oh, look how many people are lining up for a rental property in Sydney, and all these same sorts of things. So we sort of move from somewhere we're frustrated with in New Zealand, and then go to an area that a lot of Australians wouldn't want to potentially move to and go, oh, my life's completely different. It's like, because you lived in a town of 6,000, now you live in 600,000 people. Of course, there's lots going on.
Yes. And there's two things there, Luke, that I think are important. Firstly, if you decided to up sticks, move from Auckland to Sydney, you want it to succeed. You want to tell a story that, you're much better off there. So we don't hear the stories of people who don't succeed, who don't feel as though they've gained anything. So I think we talk it up. It's a sort of boosterism, which is really quite important in terms of understanding the psychology of migration.
And that has me thinking, if we're losing these young people to Australia, they are they've had the courage to do something, to go, I'm unhappy with my situation, I am going to move. And then, of course, then once you burn the boats, you kind of go, well, I don't want to go back, because it's pretty hard to admit to people it didn't work out the way. And most people would go, well, I'll just get on with it. But those, I think, economically thinking about it, and I may be wrong, they're the types of people that we actually need to get out of a slump or a funk on the other side. But we've almost lost tens of thousands of them that we're now going to rely on, or hope to rely on, to get the economy kick-started again.
Yeah, and there's always a churn. So we always see people coming back across the Tasman. So when we talk about, even if we're talking about 70,000 people leaving, almost 2/3 of them going to Australia, the net loss is about 47,000. So there's people coming back, and we forget that. But the other thing is, New Zealand's quite poor at diaspora management. So we've got some countries around the world, the Philippines would be one, India would be another, where they network very effectively. And to be fair, we do have care. So we do have some attempts at this, but they network very carefully. So even if you, Luke, are living in Sydney, perhaps there are things you're doing in Sydney that would benefit us as a country or a particular sector or firm. And how do we make that connection back to New Zealand? Because you've still got a loyalty to the country, I hope. And so how do you sort of exploit that in terms of the benefit of the country? The second thing is, what do we do to recruit people back? And one of my students did some work on this, and we're actually quite bad, we being employers in New Zealand, at acknowledging your work, your experience, your networks that you've got in London or Sydney or Mumbai or wherever it is, and see those as a benefit when you come back to New Zealand. So we tend to discount, again, I'm talking we as employers, tend to discount overseas experience, whereas we should be making more of that. So I think that sort of those diaspora connections, there's over 1 million of us living in another country, 5.3 million here, another 1 million over there. So it's quite a considerable group of people, and they're doing fantastic things. So how could we connect with them and use that expertise and knowledge in terms of what's happening to us? So could we use some of that to rebuild, economic success, economic vitality here?
Going back to then the two trends, so we're seeing more Kiwi people leave, and we've touched on Australia. Is there anything else that maybe these people are leaving for? It sounds like a lot of it is the economy and just the state of the economy that we're in at the moment.
Yeah, I think it is. I think the economic differences between the two countries are important. I think there's a sort of a perverse disincentive in the sense that if you're a new graduate, you might move offshore to avoid repaying debt.
Yeah.
And of course, while you're offshore, you accrue interest on that debt. So it sort of incentivizes you to stay in another country. We probably need to do that. I think there's one other thing that I've noticed in recent years. We're getting families where the adult children and therefore the grandchildren are living in Brisbane or Sydney. And so we're getting grandparents moving to live on the other side of the Tasman. So it's a sort of centre of gravity. Where is the family, and why am I living in Auckland when all my grandkids are in Australia?
I see. So now they're moving as well. So they've raised the kids in New Zealand. The kids have flown the coop. Is that the same?
Yep, the nest.
Yeah,
yep.
And then the parents are then saying, well, actually, what's the point of being here? I might as well move closer to them so I can now be closer to the grandkids. And so then we lose even more people.
Yes.
I see.
Yes. Yeah. So I think we need to pay more attention to this, and we probably need to think of some ways of trying to retain people or get them back if they've gone overseas, of connecting with them to use their expertise for our good.
Yeah.
People, I mean, I've spent quite a bit of this year overseas, about 3.5 months overseas, and when I encounter New Zealanders, they really are quite proud of the country, they're loyal to the country, but for the moment, and perhaps for the long term, they're living in Europe or wherever, Canada or wherever I encounter them, but they want to give back. So why don't we try and tap into that?
Yeah, I do kind of hope that maybe people go away, they sort themselves financially, they find themselves a bit more in Bali or whatever, and they decide, you know what, I want to get back to New Zealand and here's what I'm going to do, and I contribute in a different way, or they might start something, help out in the community, or they've been out of the meat grinder that they've found themselves, let's say, in New Zealand, got themselves out and can go, oh, okay, I can kind of see it differently now, and maybe we get a wave back of those people in the future.
Yes.
And they go on to do things that they may not have done if they didn't go away overseas.
Well, I think you and I are on the same page there, but we need some action. We need governments, perhaps, others to step into the space and think, well, what is it we could do?
Okay.
And I don't see a lot happening there at the moment.
So, a couple of suggestions. One,
can I just finish that and say, we do see people, some of us see people who go and live in another country as being disloyal. And I think we should reverse that and say, perhaps they're still loyal and we need to see what they can contribute in a positive sense, not to see them as abandoning us somehow.
Yeah. Do you have any thoughts on incentives to keep them here or to maybe get people back that you've seen work well internationally, say?
Well, I've seen them work well here.
Okay.
So we used to have a thing called bonding. So if you graduated out of a professional program, let's say medical school, then we would bond you to stay in New Zealand and do a particular job. What I would like to do, and I'm not sure this is even feasible, and I don't think it's going to be politically acceptable, is that if you graduated out of medical school, we're short of rural GPs. If you worked in a rural practice for 5 years, could we discount your student debt by 50%? So I just think there are options that we're really not exploring. We are losing a lot of new graduates. We're losing a lot of new graduates, particularly out of our professional programs.
Yeah, which is, as we've talked about previously, really tough because the current workforce has helped subsidise those people to get educated, to get to the point of being a net tax contributor, and then they fly off and contribute tax in a different country.
Yes, and expertise and so on. And then what we do is we do the same to other countries. So the medical professional from South Africa or the UK or India, we're actually recruiting them, but the costs of training that person have been met by their home country. So it's sort of it's a weird churn that we're seeing at the moment, where we lose medical graduates, but then we grab medical graduates from other countries.
And then the people who aren't moving here anymore, they're not moving here anymore because the narrative is there's no opportunity in New Zealand, or is there something else behind the data that slowed it down?
No, I think in terms of when you see an economic downturn, then migrants tend to be very cautious about moving.
Yes.
So they don't want to move and commit. It's a huge commitment to move to a new country. They don't want to have to move and commit to that new country to discover that there are all sorts of economic headwinds that they're going to encounter.
Yeah.
So I fully expect the numbers of migrants to go up once the economy gets a bit more vigorous and
do you know when that will
successful. No. But I think to come to your point, mobility and migration, migrants are always sensitive to the economic conditions of the country they're going to.
Yeah.
So they will read the news, they will look at websites, they will talk to people here and say, well, probably not a good idea for me to go just at the moment. I'm still interested in New Zealand. Perhaps in 5 years, I might go.
Too many of us signed up to a KiwiSaver plan without much thought. And signing up is great, but if you've never got advice before, you could be missing out. Your KiwiSaver account could become one of your biggest assets over your lifetime. That's why getting expert advice early and ensuring you're in the right fund is so worthwhile. Generate have a team of KiwiSaver advisors available to help. Head to generatekiwisaver.co.nz/change to book a no obligation meeting. They can even come to you. A copy of the product disclosure statement is available at generatekiwisaver.co.nz. The issuer of the scheme is Generate Investment Management Limited, and of course, past performance does not guarantee future returns.
Well, you probably won't be surprised by this story. And I was out having a couple of beers one night, but that's not the story you should be not surprised by. But I got a taxi, and I got in this taxi, and I started talking to him, and he was on the phone, and he was telling me how he was talking to somebody from home where he'd moved from, and basically telling him, this is not the place to move to. No. Like, look elsewhere. And he was surprised at how tough it was here economically, and he was looking at his options. And so he was saying, I don't really want to be driving this, but I can't find other roles, so needs must.
Yes.
And which I think kind of sums up the whole thing, right? Where then it goes full circle, where they come here hoping for something different, and then it's not happening. So then they tell people like, well, like I've tested it on the ground and this isn't it. And then secondly, I was talking to someone the other day, and I don't know if this is like factually correct, but this is what they told me. They were cutting my hair that you were, I was going to say complimented me on, but commented on before.
Yes.
And they were saying that they're a qualified hairdresser, but their hairdressing practice or experience isn't recognised here, so they can only, I shouldn't say only, but only be a barber as such. And they were frustrated by that, and they're like, I won't be here for too much longer. I'm going to go to Japan because I've been doing this for 10 years, but here I can't use it and leverage it, so stuff this place, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
Which I just thought was fascinating, that even at that level, like there's friction.
Yes. A couple of things I would say. I think we need to help migrants settle. So I've just been up in Canada, about to go back there. Canada are changing their ground rules. They have a very similar system to ours, a point system, but they're beginning to change their ground rules. And they commit quite a significant resource to helping people settle. So I didn't quite realise this, but when you land in Canada, you can get up to 500 hours of free language instruction or French instruction. That would be a great help for people coming to New Zealand. And I think a recognition of credentials and experience is something that we need to keep monitoring and looking at and make sure.
Yeah.
The other thing which is quite weird, so earlier this year, the Germans brought together experts to convene in a castle in Bavaria, and I happened to be one of them. And what we talked about was how a lot of the high-income world is going anti-immigrant. So if you think about Europe, Meloni in Italy, Le Pen in France, Geert Wilders in the Netherlands, Orban in Hungary, Sweden now has an anti-immigrant party, Farage and Reform Party in the UK, President Trump in the United States. At the very moment they need new people and new workers, there's this strong anti-immigrant sentiment out there. So New Zealand looks quite positive in comparison to a lot of countries that migrants in the past would have thought of going to, like the UK or the USA. At the moment, and I don't know how long it's going to last for, we look pretty welcoming in terms of migrants compared with a lot of other countries. So I think we have a sort of competitive advantage, but again, how much longer it continues for, I don't know.
Yeah, because I actually feel like I've noticed, even through Australia and New Zealand, I don't poke my head too much further than that, which maybe that's a bad thing, but the commentary on some social media seems to be there is a little bit of, the people moving to these countries are causing XYZ issues, or, not allowing us to get into a house, and there is a bit of maybe that's been the problem, we need to slow this whole thing down. So that will be fascinating.
And I think that's true for New Zealand. When we grew, as we did when we were last talking, at around 2.8%, 85% of that came from migration, then it's a real challenge to keep up with providing services and infrastructure, as you and I know, as Auckland residents. So actually slowing the population growth down, slowing down the numbers coming into New Zealand's not a bad thing if we can align services and infrastructure provision in New Zealand with the population growth that we've got. So I think we need to try and settle on a number of people that we want to come here, which won't upset what's called the absorptive capacity, the ability to absorb them, in a way that puts pressure on whatever it is, the housing market or the not so much the labour market, that's not, but in terms of services and infrastructure in particular.
So that would be some sort of cross-political party understanding or agreement around a population policy, which you've been championing for some time.
Population policy is good. I've got to say that the differences between National and Labour, both National and Labour would probably deny this, on migration are not great. So we get a lot of adjustments, but not major shifts. Yeah, they are quite similar. That's probably not true for New Zealand First or Te Pāti Māori.
Gotcha.
So they have a position on migration which tends to be more critical and hostile. The other thing is, I do think we need to maintain our social license. I think there is a value proposition which we need to keep asking, or two value propositions. Why should migrants come to New Zealand? And the second is, why should New Zealanders see migration as adding positively to the country? So I think we need to address those two if we're going to maintain a level of social license that sees migrants as adding something positive.
So do you mean like we should be able to answer those questions or have like a well-defined? I see.
I think we do. I think we need to have a discussion of them.
Yeah.
And we need to say what it is we value. We value around this country. We value in terms of what migrants can add to this country.
Yeah, because I get the sense that more people are waking up to, I was about going to say the fact, but maybe I'm wrong, but waking up to a sentiment that, actually this country's not really growing economically. What we do to get it growing is we bring people in, that then creates GDP growth, and then we can say, hey, GDP's growing up, the country's growing, that's great, we're doing well economically, but really we're bringing more people in to keep the whole thing going. And I kind of noticed this too when I then challenge people and say, okay, if the ageing demographic is slowly passing away, and they own a lot of properties, who's going to buy these houses? And instantly people are like, foreigners will buy them. Foreigners are going to buy them all. Because they just have this hardwired, we just keep bringing people into New Zealand to basically grow the population.
Yes.
And whether that continues or not.
And some of the government policy changes this year have acknowledged the sort of high wealth migrants and the ability to invest in New Zealand, in particular to buy real estate. So that is part of the ethos of this country to some extent. However, I think both in terms of GDP growth, but also in terms of productivity, if the only answer is migration, you're asking the wrong question.
Yeah.
I think too often we've relied on migration to address labour market shortages, to prop up sectors. I think there's a real catch-22 in terms of the temporary sector. If we get recognised seasonal employment workers who do a fantastic job, but if we continue to rely on them rather than think about new technology or new ways of improving productivity, so if we rely on those workers rather than be innovative, that's not serving any of us. So I think we need to be very cautious about immigration deflecting us from the need to grow GDP, improve productivity, grow our economy.
Because what I've noticed a theme of in the SME world now is more people relying on offshore labour and being more accepting of it. So instead of having somebody move here and work for me or employ somebody in New Zealand, oh, you're saying that I can get somebody to do some architectural design, some admin support, some accounting support. Wow, okay. And there's two schools of thought with that, right? And one is, well, that's shit because it's taking jobs away from a New Zealander. But secondly, it opens the New Zealand business owners' eyes to, oh, okay, I didn't realise it was possible. We've freed up that time. Okay, we're still profitable. Where could we reinvest that profit into, or what other services can we now offer with the knowledge that we can access this skill set of labour? Are you talking about that, seeing that?
Yes, I am. I mean, can we go back a step? Business New Zealand have looked at the labour shortages that are going to occur over the next 20 years as a result of our new demography. And the figure's pretty alarming. It's 250,000.
Shortage of workers.
Shortage of workers. So one possibility is offshoring, which is what you're referring to. And the US economy has seen a lot of that. And it's going to be very interesting to see how much of that President Trump can onshore again.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm not sure whether you know much about the health sector, but a lot of the functions are now done offshore. So notes for consultations, all of that sort of thing that's available.
Is this in America or New Zealand?
In America.
Okay.
In America. So we've got the offshoring, we've got the use of AI and new technologies to supplement and replace workers. But even if you think about that 250,000 shortage of workers, I'm just not sure how the numbers add up. And I still think we're going to have to rely on immigration to make up some of that shortfall. And, you know, it goes from elder care right the way through to very sophisticated IT healthcare workers.
Yeah.
So there's quite a spectrum there. And if you look at where migrants are coming from, India now dominates, China number 2, Philippines number 3. So you can see that in terms of dairying or elder care, there's a growing reliance on people coming from the Philippines, and they do a fantastic job.
Yeah.
So I think that's going to be part of our ongoing story.
Now, hypothetically then, if we said, righto, we've got a shortage of 250,000 roles, we know that we will over the next 10 years, I would guess...
20 years, yeah.
How many? 20?
20 years,
20.
yeah.
We could easily find 250,000 people willing to move to New Zealand. Like
yes.
We could do it in a year,
yes.
probably if we wanted to. But there would be hell to pay. There'd be massive backlash here in New Zealand.
Including from me.
yeah, because we would know the infrastructure's not ready. Right?
Yep.
So the interesting thing is, okay, is it MB or is it the New Zealand business that are saying the 250,000?
Business New Zealand,
business.
Yeah.
And then we've got an infrastructure deficit already, right, where we're not keeping up with the infrastructure of the current population. Is that right?
Yeah. And I don't know whether I talked about it last time, but there's a dependency ratio. And the dependency ratio is going to go from 7 people in paid work to 1 person on superannuation. I think it's now 4 to 1, and it'll eventually end up being 2 to 1. So suddenly the whole structure of how you generate something that the state can then spend on health, education, welfare, superannuation is changed.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the systems we have don't actually recognise this new demography that's beginning to emerge in New Zealand. So immigration's part of that, but it's not the only part. And how do we relate it to other things that are going on? And one of the questions I have is that I know that we've got an underutilised workforce. So Māori would be one, Pacifica would be one, women, and the over 65s.
Yeah.
And so can we do more there? So if we take the over 65s, what strikes me is how little we have by way of policies, I'm talking about sectors and organisations here, that encourage the over 65s to continue working. So could we do that better? Because if you look at all the trends, the number of over 65s who will still be in paid work will increase, and it'll be a much more significant part of our workforce.
It'll have to, right? Because can we survive on that 2 to 1 dependency?
No, we can't.
It's not going to work.
No, it's not going to work.
So then, for a SME who may be listening, a small business, it's probably smart for them to start thinking about offshore labour ahead of them realising, I'm way behind the curve and we don't have the people here to be able to do it because we've got a potential shortfall.
Yes.
I could have been trying to solve this ahead of time.
Yes. And it might be that you offshore, it might be that you bring people onshore, it might be that you think about new sources of labour and skills onshore, and it might be that you think about new technology.
Yeah.
So I think we've just got to get smarter around all of those aspects.
Year, I've never had more grads reach out to me looking for an internship or some form of role. I don't know if it's my profile or the type of the economy or both, but just there was a wave of it. And I do worry for them because you probably, they're running the risk that people can use technology or offshoring instead of training up the New Zealand grad. And maybe that's partly why we are seeing some of these young grads across different professions go, I'm out of here.
Yeah. And remember, it's like a release valve as well. And it would be really interesting to think if we didn't have the net loss of 45 to 50,000 New Zealanders, if they stayed onshore, what would it do to our unemployment rate?
Yeah.
Are we exporting unemployment or some forms of unemployment in terms of those people who are leaving? So I do worry about some of those dynamics and how they interact. If we, because
that's actually a question I wanted to ask you, and I keep thinking about it when I see these people leaving. So, what you're saying, and I've been wondering this too, is if all of these people who have left, especially these young Kiwi people moving to Australia, if they had have stayed, what would our unemployment rate be? Because potentially they wouldn't be able to find roles, or they would be taking the role of somebody who currently now has it, do you think?
Yeah, no, I don't know the answer to it, but it's an interesting thought experiment, isn't it? It's what if those people didn't leave and stayed here? What would be the impact, not only on unemployment, by the way, I think underemployment. Yes. What we're seeing is that unemployment's growing, but the underemployment's growing as well, which is people who are in positions where their skills experience is not being fully utilised, that they're looking for more work.
Yeah. So that brings me to, we could talk for hours, but one thing that I've been studying since we last caught up was that I started digging into some data around the demographic of business owners in New Zealand.
Yes.
Now, it's
very interesting, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes.
And I actually think it's one of the headwinds that the politicians don't talk about. And I even saw somebody ask an economist at a learning day, do you guys think about this? And they basically said, no, but maybe we should. And I was thinking, maybe we should.
Yes.
But what this data tells us is that older business owners in New Zealand are least likely to export, to innovate, to add technology, to add payment gateways to accept funds in other ways other than bank transfer, less likely to hire. And I have to, when I talk about this now, I'm not being ageist, but if I put myself in their shoes, I'm not going to go through, this economy that we've just had and then go, you know what, this politician's telling us we should grow. Good idea. I might start thinking about exporting. I'm at the end of my business cycle going, you know what? I'm ready to actually just make sure this thing's profitable enough that I can potentially sell it.
Yes.
I'm even hearing from people walking away from their businesses just going, okay, I've had enough. But so some data 2 years ago from Chartered CPA Australia.
Yes.
1 in 2 business owners are over the age of 50.
Yes.
Then the next year they're like, actually, we think it could be 2/3 or about 65%. Now, then those stats all stay the same, and it's measured across 11 countries, Asia Pacific, and we're basically like last and second last against those countries. And the Asia Pacific average is around 28% of business owners are over the age of 50. So we've got an aging demographic, but then also an aging business owner demographic, which are then less likely to go out there and grow and whatnot, because they're probably just not at that life cycle of their business. And also there's a whole heap of them that they're going to want to sell. And now we've got people saddled with debt that may want to buy a business, but they potentially can't. So I feel like I've learnt that's, well, my conclusion is that's also a headwind that we're not talking about enough, that's actually potentially slowing the economy down compared to having, a younger workforce or business owner group.
Yeah, and I think there's really good evidence that as you come to the end of your working life and the ownership of a business, you become more conservative. Why would you risk anything at that point in your life? So, and it's true for people who then retire because they don't want to risk whatever money they've saved up, so they go very conservative in terms of what they're prepared to invest in.
Yeah.
So an ageing population is almost inevitably associated with much more conservative approaches to risk and to ownership and to investment. So that's part of it. But what we've been looking at in part is who will buy the business. And that's not clear. So if we look at that Albany industrial estate north of us where we are at the moment, again, a lot of those business owners came in when it was being built in the 80s and 90s. So we're now 30 years on, and they're coming to the end of their ownership of a particular business. So one of the questions that we're asking is, we've got quite a large group of business owners who are going to exit whatever that business is in New Zealand over the next 10, 15 years. Who's buying it?
Yeah.
And it's not at all clear. And one of the areas that that some colleagues have looked at is dairy farm ownership. So we've seen these very large dairy farms come together, very often with huge investments, very expensive, and an ageing ownership of dairy farms. So is it sort of inevitable that the only people who can afford that are big investors, big corporates, often overseas corporates, because the local market's just not there of people who would actually be able to find that money to buy these very expensive units.
Yeah.
So
they've got a big problem in that industry, or they've got to solve that, don't they?
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. But it's true for a lot of different sectors across New Zealand that we've got people who are coming to the end of their business ownership lives.
Yeah.
And then who's going to buy that business? Because they want to realise their capital at that particular point, because that's possibly their superannuation.
Well, interestingly, I did a podcast as well along those same lines with Scott O'Neill, and he runs Rethink in Australia. Now they help people buy commercial property. Now they've got a wave of Aussie investors coming into New Zealand buying commercial property because they're going, "Oh, this is underpriced. Oh, this is great." They're bringing their Aussie dollars over here.
Yes, yeah.
So maybe we'll get some people coming back the other way, But you're kind of seeing people look like capital move to, to pay for buy the opportunity that potentially other people can't afford.
Yeah.
There'll be a big wave to a vendor finance, so people are learning more about that. That's where the business owner finance it, so the employee or the purchaser can't get finance from the bank, so then the business owner becomes the bank, and they say, you can buy it off of me, you've got to pay it off over time. So I think we'll see more of that in New Zealand as well.
And can I say there's something that I'm finding really difficult to get good data on, but if you look at immigrants coming into New Zealand, what's really interesting is where they get their finance from. So they might bring it with them. They might have capital that they bring. When we talk to immigrant business owners, particularly Asian immigrant business owners, they often don't trust our banks, insurance companies, other key people, and they operate very closely on networks, and very often those are networks inside the community. So if you take something, I know it's partly stereotypical, but Indians and dairies, and how do they get into those dairies? Well, they often get into them because members of the family fund them to get in as a way of paying forward, because they then fund other members to get in. And so you've got these quite extensive business networks that are now emerged in New Zealand, but particularly in Auckland, where much of the funding, the purchase, perhaps the people that you employ, perhaps the suppliers are very often from inside that community. And I'm not sure we recognise that for the importance that it's become.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because I was talking to someone, I'm pretty sure they were from Iran, and I was asking them about, their life in New Zealand, and I don't think it was their uncle, but it was someone in their network who had lived here for a while, was basically, when they moved here, you don't get a job. No, you start a business, and if you need finance, come and speak to me. We'll be able to sort it out. And so that's what they did. And
Yes.
they started one, and they're like, okay, get this working. Then the next chapter was, well, you don't just have one, you need a second one and a third one. And I'm thinking, far out, like this is not how.
No. And can I say, when we talk to them, boy, do they work hard.
Yeah.
And so when you look at a dairy's income and spread it across the hours that are worked, it's not a huge return. And they very often rely on family members, co-ethnic members to work in that business at quite low returns. But what they do is they build up capital, they build up expertise, and they build up the funds to continue to invest in whatever it is that they're working in. So it's just, I think that's quite invisible. It's different, and it's invisible to many of us.
Yeah, we talked about this a little bit on social media through Keep the Change this year, and some of the direct messages I got was kind of a bit of frustration that happens, because Kiwi people were saying, this is a place of balance and a place of being a bit more chill. We shouldn't have to work that hard. And with these people coming here and doing that, that's then not what we thought the country was. And so, hey, good and well for them, but I don't want to do 6 days. I don't want to do 7 days. I don't want to see stories of overtime glorified.
Yes.
I want to have a good, cruisy, balanced life. And then the migrants are saying to me, well, good luck with that. I'm going to make the most of our opportunity here. And so there's this real, I'm like, whoa, shit. But I can obviously see both sides.
And if you look at dairying, for example, if you talk to dairy owners, they'd probably say, well, we've tried desperately to get New Zealanders to work in the dairy sector, but it's pretty demanding. But we've got these Filipinos who've come in, probably not ever done dairying in their lives, but boy, do they work hard. They're good workers, great attitude. And so what's the problem?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that stuff's tough, isn't it?
It is tough. It is tough.
Studied and taught us about, like, the demographic is changing, and if we think that what New Zealand used to be is what it's going to be, we're sort of fooling ourselves, right?
We are. We need to think about, I think the thing that frustrates me, Luke, is that from government down, I guess some of the corporates would be exempt from this, but from government down, particularly in the SME sector, the horizon, the strategic horizon is actually really short. And we don't think out. So I noticed there was a report recently about succession planning, and that business owners needed to have a succession plan, but there weren't many.
Yeah.
So, it's just, wow, we really do need to understand how the environment's changing. I am really keen on understanding how our demography is changing and what that means. And then perhaps we need policies, government policies included, that think, what are we going to do in 10 years, 20 years' time that will make this country successful?
Because I think if that happens at a higher level, then more people thinking about it.
Yes.
So, I'll challenge people, okay, if you're going to mug the government off for not doing that, well, then tell me about your plan.
Yes.
And you kind of think, we don't even think to do it. And
No.
I watched a clip the other day about retirement, and all these people that were interviewed basically like, oh, someone will look after me. Oh, she'll be right. No, I haven't really thought about it. Oh, I'm only 45,
No.
and it's like this whole Kiwi sort of, because everyone talks like that.
Yeah.
Then we think, oh, okay, well, I'm a bit the same. She'll be right. Someone will look after me. Who's someone?
No, indeed. And putting on my demographer hat, you are going to live a very long time as a retired person. So the amount of time that we live post-work is increasing all the time. So it's not, in the past you would have retired at, let's say, 60 or 65, and you might not have lived more than about 10 years. Well, no longer. You're living 20 or 25 or 30 years, and so who looks after you over that time span if you think about the impacts on inflation on your the $1 million that you saved over a 30-year period, it gets a bit scary at times.
Yeah. Well, there's, it used to be people anecdotally would talk about you get to 65 and then you'd go risk completely off of your investments. And now there's sort of talk of, well, you might live another 30 years, so don't go risk off, just keep it risk on and slowly draw down from it and ride out the... Yeah. Hey, I want to go back to an observation I've made, and I've been trying to be really loud about this. Not everybody likes hearing about it, but I do wonder if we almost set a whole heap of people up the wrong way too, where we said, right, education, that will mean a job, that will mean a good income. Everything's broken over this last 5 years, right? And then we've gone from highs and lows. So we've gone from record unemployment to now a reference point of 400,000 Kiwi people going, I want more work and I'm underemployed.
Yes.
And I've been sitting in the middle kind of going, well, I come from a entrepreneurial business background now and have learnt more about it. I think, go next door and do this for your neighbour. I had a young person telling me this week, I've built a business taking people's bins out for them, believe it or not. Yeah.
Fair enough.
I had someone message me and they service camper vans. And so they run Facebook ads to people that have a camper van in different locations. They go to that location and they service them. And they can see that the career or the job may not be there at the moment, but they can see there's actually still a lot of money out there. But we've taught everyone, job equals pay, rather than, hey, solve problem or task equals pay. I was very lucky when I grew up that I watched people doing tasks and getting paid for it, i.e. relief milking, do some firewood, and you would do these micro tasks and you would transact, and I think, so the only way to make money isn't just a job. And there's almost this disconnect where people have been almost, I think they feel a little bit lied to, like, someone told me, get a job via getting an education and then I'll be well looked after, and they're not. And there's this big disconnect between their expectation and then the expectation of the employer, and I think we're seeing it play out at the moment.
Yes. I think that's largely a generational values. The values of different generations are clashing a little bit here. In the 1990s, we began a project on what we called non-standard work. So standard work is 9 to 5, expectation of ongoing employment, promotions, working quite long periods for a particular employer. The non-standard was contract, short-term, part-time, third-party portfolio, which is doing 2 or more paid jobs. What's ironic is that the non-standard has now become standard. So the people doing those, working in that sector, are now larger than the people who are on standard employment contracts. So one of the things I think we need to rethink is the linear approach that you did education, perhaps training, job, and that was the end of it. So the OECD says most people will do 15 to 18 different jobs over their working lifetime.
Wow.
And it's not because it's not that they're being employed by different employers, it's that they're doing a fundamentally different job because the job market is changing. So I'm not sure our education and training system or the way in which we incentivize employers is adjusting to this new way of working. And at Massey, I asked that we altered the BA, and one of the courses we did was being an entrepreneur in the labour market. So understanding that you were going to change and what did that look like, and that you needed to be mobile in the labour market. You needed generic skills. You needed, I think it's a misnomer, but what was called soft skills, problem solving, communication, working in teams, being able to shift tasks and look for tasks, or to understand that there was an opportunity over here that other people weren't doing. So I think we've got quite a old mindset. We've got a system which really hasn't adjusted to the modern world of work. I think AI is going to really continue to play into this space.
Yeah.
And, you know, we're quite anxious about AI. We're quite anxious about technology. I think we need to take a much more proactive approach and think, what are the opportunities in terms of what can I do that would give me an income?
Most Kiwi don't have a financial plan, they have a she'll be right mate attitude. Amy from Leverage is helping KTC listeners change that. If you're needing direction, clarity, or wondering what your next financial move should be, then book a call with Amy or download her free DIY financial plan to freedom. To do that, visit financialplan.co.nz. Well, it's funny you say that, because I've almost seen a lot of people kind of go, oh, AI is my final sort of, well, I'm doomed. Where's my, where's my my UBI that I read about online, or where's, okay, well, I'm never going to be able to be employed and the employers are going to shaft me, so why don't you just drip feed me some cash every week, and I, instead of, whoa, what could I do with this? And, I do see some younger people coming through that are, they're embracing it, or they are, and not, I'm not saying everybody is like this, but,
no.
Or seeing, e-commerce, okay, so you're telling me I could sell things internationally from New Zealand? Great. And so they're learning it. But yeah, I get the sense that people feel a little bit hard done by, that what they thought was going to protect them all the time is not really working at the moment. And then it's almost in your face when you see somebody out there making more than you and they're cleaning windows. And you kind of go, I studied and do all this. But why I got thinking about it is I was seeing all these people saying, I've applied for 100 jobs. I'm thinking, don't apply for 100 jobs, knock on 100 doors, and solve 100 problems. And you'll be in a season of making some money, and then maybe the job market turns. But anyway.
And can I say that, if you, Luke, were coming to see me at Massey University, I would say, is it the right time for you to come and do a degree? Perhaps you need to go and work or travel or do something else, mature, and then you will know exactly what you want to do in terms of a tertiary qualification. Can we add to your skills? And that might not be academic skills. It might be you doing an internship. It might be you volunteering at the church, sports club, whatever it is, so that you develop a package of skills that become really, really important. And when we look at people's entry into the labour market, the old days where you left school at 16, 17, 18 and went straight into a job, it's not like that now. You often do rubbish jobs, precarious jobs for quite some time until you get in. So typically people tend to find their job in their mid, late 20s or even in their 30s that they actually enjoy, that they get rewarded for. So I just think a lot of the dynamics around the labour market, how we get jobs, what sort of jobs we do, the conditions of our work have changed quite fundamentally. And can I say one final thing? Looking at immigrants, I think immigrants are really mobile, really innovative, and are bringing an added dimension to some of these dynamics in ways that are really, have a good look around your immigrant communities. They are doing things which you would never have thought of, and which they are earning money.
Well, I got a ride in Queenstown from the city to the airport, and I got talking to the guy driving. Amazing car he was in. I was thinking, far out, it's a nice car. I didn't even know what brand it was, and it's electric thing. And I was asking where he's from and whatnot, and then he was saying, I was living in Christchurch, and I said, okay, you down here for a bit, or no, I've moved down here. I was like, what brought you down here? He's like, more trips. I'm like, oh, okay. He's like, I'm like, you mean more people needing? He's like, yeah, more people need more rides down here, so I'll make more money. So I moved here.
Yes.
I'm like, Well, when you put it like that, it's pretty simple, isn't it?
It is.
But we would go, well, you shouldn't have to, or that's, that's unfair, etc. We could talk for hours, and I'm sure we'll have to do a round 4 at some stage. I think I didn't even get to look at any of my questions, but I think we've kind of covered them as we've gone. But is there anything that individually, I know that you often probably come at it more from a collective and whatnot sort of mindset or approach. Is there anything individually that we need to be more mindful of, or that we could be doing to set ourselves up better, or more aware of our parents' situations? Anything that comes to mind?
There's a couple of things. I think the community around you is changing, and we often don't talk or listen to young people in New Zealand. I think young people in New Zealand are fantastic, but I worry about their disengagement, particularly from politics. I worry really about the turnout and the voting for local body elections. There's something broken there that we need to address. So that talking to and listening and being open to listening to young people applies equally to migrants. So nearly 30% of all New Zealanders are migrants. Over 40% of all Aucklanders are migrants. And it's such a part of our lives these days. And they've come as skilled, educated, often experienced people. Couldn't we learn from them?
Yeah.
So I just think there's a need to open minds and ears and listen to them. The Helen Clark Foundation has produced a report about ageing in Aotearoa. I am really concerned that we are letting this thing slide without addressing the challenge of a society which has eventually will have a quarter of us aged over 65.
Not that far away?
Mid-century, but at the moment we're 18% over 65. Within the next 2 decades we'll be 23% over 65 and eventually 25% aged over 65. That has all sorts of connotations, and it impacts upon our systems, on what we can afford, what we should prioritise, what we should be doing, not simply for the older community amongst us, but the pressure it's going to put on younger New Zealanders. So why aren't we having a debate about that, I think, is a question I would put. And I think each of us, you're a very different generation to me, but I think a lot of my generation quite often don't want to confront the age of superannuation eligibility, means testing superannuation. Have we pay for superannuation? It's like we've earned it. It's owed us.
Yeah.
And I just think that's not the best approach for the future.
Yeah, it's a little bit. Yeah, we won't even get into it. You say that, and actually, yes. I went and spoke to some uni students recently. The number one thing that most of them sort of wanted to know, what they were concerned about, is this a good country to stay in? Should I leave? Thinking, guys, when I was getting to uni in year 1, you know what I was thinking about? Holy shit, my life just got 20 times better. You telling me I could do what I want, and far out, I'm going to have to learn to cook, and I can meet up with these people, and no one's telling me what to do.
New experiences, I
wasn't thinking I need to get out of here and get overseas. So that really, I thought, that's coming from somewhere, right?
Yeah, and that's partly what I'm thinking about when I'm asking people in New Zealand to listen to those sort of year 12, 13s or those university students. They're not owed anything, but they have concerns, and you've voiced one of those concerns. So what are we going to do to retain them in New Zealand? I think that's part of, part of it's a much more positive mindset, but it's also, who's going to pay for Luke's superannuation?
Yeah, I'll put my money aside, Paul. We'll see how we go.
Good on you, Luke.
But you're right. Like, it's the story we tell these people. The story they're obviously hearing is get your uni done and get out of here.
Yeah.
And so then, of course, they're going to go, okay, well, I think that's what I need to do. But yeah, I think we do need more positive storytelling.
Yes.
That's tough to do, appreciate, especially in this sort of economy. Final thing, is there a country that we look like in terms of they're ahead of us and they have an aging demographic, they've got all the same challenges, and we can almost see our fate if we look at them and go, oh, we're on a very similar path to them, or are we very unique given size?
We're late in terms of the aging trajectory, declining fertility. We're unusual because we have so many immigrants coming here, and many of those immigrants are skilled, experienced. So we're like Canada, Australia in that regard. The most advanced aging countries are Germany and Japan. So those are the sorts of challenges that we're going to face as we catch up with them, as it were. Are there countries that I would look to? Ireland would be one that I would look to in terms of some of the things they're doing. I would say Scandinavia, Germany and the Netherlands. But look, the state in, let's say, Sweden, I spent 2.5 months in Sweden last year. The state in Sweden takes up to 50% of your income as tax. There's a 25% consumption tax. I think it's a fool's paradise to compare ourselves with a country like that. It's just in terms of how the country and the state operates and the wealth it has available to it to do what it needs to do is just not something that we...
Yeah, very different.
It is very different. Yeah. It is very different.
I think that's kind of what I was saying about Aussie and New Zealand earlier, where it's so easy to compare ourselves to countries, but realistically, it's a pretty flawed model as such, because every country is so different, right? Just like a household would be different to their neighbours.
Yes. And we're a little country, 5.3 million, on the edge of the world. We have a history of policy and economic innovation. We probably haven't done as much of that in the last few years. But I'm confident when we look at the people that are New Zealanders, including immigrants, including our young, I think we've got the basis for doing something a bit different. Quite what the trigger is or what the moment is that we begin to do that, I'm not sure about.
Well, it normally takes a crisis in New Zealand for us to get our A into G. Rather than not.
I'd rather not. I'd rather not do that. Yeah.
Well, thank you for your time. I was going to joke and say we'll have to do another annual checkup November next year or November, December. But yeah, I didn't even get a chance to ask you how many different things you've been and spoken to over the last 12 months and where you've been. But we understand you've got grandparent duties.
I do.
Yeah, so we'll let you get out of here.
Thank you.
If people want to get in touch with you, are they allowed to, or is there a way to do that?
No, of course. And, I did a book a few years ago, which was The New Zealand Demographic Disruption. So much has happened, I really do need to do an update. Yeah. So I think part of what I want to do is contribute to well-informed, evidence-based debate. I don't have the answers.
Yeah.
But I do want us to be attuned to some of the challenges we're going to face.
Well, then quickly, in 30 seconds, what drives you to keep contributing? Because I think we need more people in this country contributing and going, you know what, I can't solve the whole problem, but I can contribute. What keeps you going?
I love what I do. I love talking to you, Luke.
Yeah.
I'm a bit of a statistics geek.
I couldn't tell.
No. I love statistics, and I love what it tells us about social change. So I just love debating, interacting with people and saying, well, this is what I'm seeing. What do you think?
Well, I think there's an answer in there, because I was reading a Gallup Global Workforce Survey, and basically 80% of people are disengaged in their work internationally. Wow. I'd say that'd be very similar in New Zealand.
Wow, yeah.
The reason we get so jazzed up about this stuff in our respective professions is because we love what we do, right? And I think that's the blessing of life, trying to find something that you actually love doing. And then you're not itching to retire or to quit or to move to Australia or do something, So there's an answer in there.
I went to Hastings Boys High a long time ago. But last week they inducted me into their Hall of Fame.
Well done.
And yes, thank you. But I had to speak to the students. Now this is the senior school prize giving. What can I say to the students? So the only thing I really said was, whatever you do, be passionate about it. If you're not passionate, you're not going to be engaged. So whether it's sport, I didn't say all of this, but whether it's sport, work, study, whatever it is, do something that you really like doing, and that will carry you through. And if I had one thing I would say about universities, those students that were passionate about their study always did better.
Yeah. Yeah, there we go. There's a lesson for all of us. Find something that you're passionate about. And as you say, 15 to 18 jobs in our careers, right?
Yes.
Someone will be listening right now and they don't want to move because of the economy or something. You're going to have another job in your life at some stage.
Yep.
Get out of some environment that you don't want to be in.
Yep.
There we
Absolutely.
go. We'll leave it there.
Thank you, Luke.
Thanks for listening to the podcast. As always, make sure you're taking action. And I would love to see you on the 5th of December at Keep the Change Unplugged. We're going to be kicking off around 6:30, but start rolling in from 6 p.m. It's only $26. It's in Takapuna. If you Google Keep the Change Unplugged, you'll find the Ticketmaster link. I'd love to see you there. Let's get inspired by some of these amazing guests that we've had throughout the year and get ourselves ready for an awesome 2026. Bring it on.